Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from the UBS Arena in Long Island, here in New York. Dynamite tonight, I thought it was a good show, in my opinion. I really enjoyed Dynamite tonight. I thought it was better than last week's show. The crowd there in Long Island was good, and they actually made some noise. Unlike the crowd that we got for Monday Night Raw last week when it was in the same arena. And yet, Monday Night Raw last week, the tickets, they couldn't even sell out the whole arena. AEW tonight looked like they had a full crowd. It was fully packed there in the UBS Arena. So AEW actually sold more tickets than WWE did with Monday Night Raw last week when they were there. But what do we see on Dynamite tonight? We had a Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal where the two winners will get to face off next week on Dynamite, and the winner will get the Dynamite Diamond Ring. We had the Varsity Blondes and the Jurassic Express versus the Acclaimed and 2.0 in an 8-man tag. We had the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson versus Rocky Romero and Chuck Taylor of the Best Friends. And we actually had a return tonight, which I will get to. We also saw Riho versus Jamie Hayter. And the main event, we had BRYAN DANIELSON versus John Silver of Dark Order. Of course, BRYAN DANIELSON targeting still the Dark Order guys. But overall, Dynamite tonight was a good show. Really enjoyed it. But let's jump right into the review. Dynamite kicked off tonight with MJF's music playing. MJF, of course, from Long Island. It's his hometown. And MJF's music got a decent reaction from the crowd. And so MJF didn't come out. CM Punk came out to MJF's music. So he ended up swerving the fans, thinking that MJF was coming out. Punk ended up getting some boos from the crowd, because the crowd is, of course, looking forward to their hometown guy, MJF. So Punk ended up getting on the mic, and he ended up asking Long Island if that's all they got. So he ended up saying that Chicago was a lot louder. Punk ended up asking the crowd if MJF is their guy, which the crowd ended up cheering and booing at the same time. So it was a mixed response. So CM Punk actually cut this promo like he was a heel. So Punk ended up showing a t-shirt that he was wearing with the 4 pillars on it. So MJF was replaced on that shirt by Britt Baker. So Punk ended up saying that he's not mad at the fans, and he feels a little sorry for them. Punk ended up saying that next week he has his eyes on the upcoming AEW World Championship match between BRYAN DANIELSON and Hangman Adam Page. So he ended up saying that he wants to fight whoever wins the AEW World Championship match next week on Dynamite, which of course the show is going to be called Winter is Coming. So Punk ended up believing that MJF wants to be next as well, and that he thinks they have to settle that first. So Punk goes on, and he trash talks about the Islanders, the New York Islanders, the hockey team. And trust me, Punk wasn't the only one to trash the Islanders, which I will get to. So Punk ended up saying that Larry has more balls than MJF, which Larry is, of course, Punk's dog. And Punk ended up saying that Larry, his dog, is neutered. So Punk ended up claiming if MJF is their guy, then they are all chicken shit. So pretty much that was basically the promo that Punk ended up cutting. And really like this promo from Punk. I like how he came off being a heel to the Long Island crowd because they were expecting MJF, but they got CM Punk. So I thought that was pretty good. So it's a little tease for when AEW makes CM Punk a heel. So this was a little preview for whenever that time comes when they turn Punk heel. But I really enjoyed this promo from Punk. So then we saw a car driving into the arena. And the person inside the car was MJF. So we had a voiceover just talking about MJF's accomplishments that he has done from the time that he was at school to, the years, throughout the years. And it was just, the voiceover was just trash talking people who are not from Long Island, pretty much basically putting over Long Island's own MJF. That's all it was. And then we had the first match, which was the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal. So the competitors were already out there. MJF ended up making his entrance. He got a good ovation from the crowd, and he ended up mocking Punk's entrance. So the Battle Royal began. The competitors ended up coming into the ring. The competitors I saw there were like Lee Moriarty, Matt Sydal, Matt Hardy was in there, Jay Lethal, Dante Martin, Lio Rush, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs. But we saw MJF, he almost got eliminated, but Wardlow ended up making the save. We saw Lee Moriarty and Matt Sydal. They end up both getting eliminated. The Bunny, at a point in the match, actually threw brass knucks in for Matt Hardy. So Matt Hardy was given the brass knucks. And Matt Hardy ended up nailing Jay Lethal with the brass knucks. And he then tossed Jay Lethal out of the ring, over the top rope, eliminating Jay Lethal. So Dante Martin ended up coming from behind because Matt Hardy was bragging about him eliminating Jay Lethal. Dante Martin ended up coming from behind and he eliminated Matt Hardy. So then we had a stare down between Lio Rush and Dante Martin. So it was a pretty good stare down there. And Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs ended up taking both Dante Martin and Lio Rush out. So Hobbs ended up getting sent on the ring apron while he was fighting away at Wardlow. Lio Rush ended up appearing. He ended up knocking Hobbs down. So Ricky Starks, who was also in the match, Ricky Starks almost got eliminated by Lio Rush. So Dante Martin and Frankie Kazarian at a point started going at it. They went back and forth and then bouncing off the ropes. Lio Rush ended up continuing to eliminate Starks. MJF ended up managing to run through the bottom ropes. He ended up surviving. Lio Rush avoided Wardlow. He ended up attacking MJF. So we had Lio Rush and Lee Johnson almost getting out Wardlow. And this point in the match, MJF then eliminated Wardlow. Yes, he eliminated Wardlow. So you know what that means? Could this mean a babyface turn for Wardlow? Wardlow's going to be away from MJF. They're going to be breaking Wardlow away from MJF. And this could mean a babyface run for Wardlow here after what we saw. Could be. So we had MJF end up pulling the ropes down on Frankie Kazarian. He ended up eliminating Frankie Kazarian. And the only three that were in the Battle Royal here were MJF, Dante Martin, and Ricky Starks. So we had Ricky Starks and Dante Martin. They end up going towards MJF. And Dante Martin end up eliminated Ricky Starks. So Dante Martin swerved Team Taz there. He eliminated Ricky Starks. So Dante Martin ended up tricking Team Taz. So it was down. So now the two people that it was down to, and these two won the match here that will face off next week on Dynamite, MJF and Dante Martin. So next week on Dynamite, we're going to be getting MJF versus Dante Martin. The winner wins the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And my prediction, MJF is definitely going to win the Dynamite Diamond Ring yet again. So, will not be shocked at that. MJF will be winning again. Post-match, we had MJF and Dante Martin. They end up shaking hands. Ricky Starks then end up attacking Dante Martin. MJF was contemplating if he should help and beat down on Dante Martin, to which he does. So MJF and Ricky Starks were being down on Dante Martin. CM Punk then ended up rushing to the ring. MJF ended up getting out of it, wanting nothing to do with Punk. And Punk ended up delivering the GTS to Ricky Starks, laying him out. And that was that. Punk and Dante Martin ended up standing tall in the ring. Well, like I said, we're going to be getting MJF versus Dante Martin next week on Dynamite for Winter is Coming for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Which, like I said, is possibly going to go back to MJF once again. MJF, I think, is going to still have the Dynamite Diamond Ring on him. So that's my prediction. And then we had an 8-man tag. We had Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus of the Jurassic Express and the Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. versus the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster, and 2.0. And this was a pretty good tag team match here. Of course, when we had the Acclaim come out, Max Caster was rapping, and when he was rapping, he ended up saying that, oh, we are bigger in New York than New York. And I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. I know Max Caster is from Long Island, but when you say we are bigger in New York than New York, do you realize that Long Island is in New York? That didn't make any fucking sense when Max Caster said that. So then Max Caster ended up taking a shot at the Islanders. Once again, not only did Punk take a shot at the Islanders, but Max Caster did. So Max Caster ended up saying that Jungle Boy still can't cut a promo, and that they will run his bitch ass out of town, like Cuomo. Of course, referencing to Governor Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, everybody who lives out here in New York knows what he did. So, and then the match got underway. We had Jungle Boy and Anthony Bowens start off the match. Bowens ended up doing a shoulder tackle to Jungle Boy, delivering a few chops to him. Caster ended up coming in. Jungle Boy ended up dominating on Max Caster. And he ended up bouncing off the top rope. Ended up dragging both members of 2.0 across the ring because 2.0 was in there. Brian Pillman Jr. ended up hitting a drop kick through the ropes. And Griff Garrison ended up launching himself over the top rope to take out 2.0. Pillman ended up keeping Max Caster isolated in the ring. And he ended up dropping Anthony Bowens. and we had both Bowens and Max Caster and 2.0. They end up keeping Brian Pillman Jr. Down in the corner. So Brian Pillman Jr. ended up hitting a backdrop on Jeff Parker of 2.0. Caster ended up coming in. He was preventing Brian Pillman Jr. to make the tag to Griff Garrison. So Brian Pillman Jr. ended up breaking through a double team of the Acclaimed, and Luchasaurus ended up tagging in. Luchasaurus ended up just taking out the Acclaimed and 2.0. So at the end of the match, we had Daniel Garcia end up getting on the rope. Eddie Kingston end up coming out, end up launching Daniel Garcia into the ring steps. Max Caster end up missing the mic drop because Jungle Boy end up moving out of the way. Jungle Boy end up picking up the win for the team, so Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and the Varsity Blondes ended up winning the match. So then, after the match, post-match, Eddie Kingston ended up taking the camera backstage, and we had both 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. They end up attacking Eddie Kingston backstage, throwing garbage cans around, and pretty much basically that was that. But overall, this was a good 8-man tag. Really enjoyed it. I liked the pairing of Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and the Varsity Blondes. So, really enjoyable 8-man tag. So, Eddie Kingston, of course, is now not done with 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. Then we saw FTR and Tully Blanchard backstage. Tully Blanchard ended up saying that they have beaten the Lucha Brothers 3 times, and it is hard to get them back in the ring. So Harwood and Wheeler end up pointing out the only time the Lucha Brothers have won was a fluke. And they end up claiming that this Friday on Rampage, they will become 2-time AEW World Tag Team Champions. So that was what they had to say, but Rampage on Friday, we're going to be getting that match. AEW World Tag Team titles on the line. FTR versus the Lucha Brothers. Should be another good matchup between them there. And then we had the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, versus Chuck Taylor and Rocky Romero, calling themselves Chaos. So this was another good matchup here. This was a very enjoyable match. We had Nick Jackson starting off the match. He was controlling Rocky Romero's arm, but Rocky Romero was able to turn things around, and he started delivering a couple of arm drags to Nick Jackson. Nick ended up making the blind tag to Matt after Chuck Taylor ended up coming in. Chuck Taylor was on the top, and he was controlling Matt Jackson's arm. So later on, the Bucks ended up regaining control of the match. They ended up sending Chuck Taylor out of the ring. Rocky Romero ended up launching himself out of the ring. He ended up taking out Nick. So both the Bucks end up isolating on Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero ended up fighting back, and he ended up tagging in Chuck Taylor. Chuck Taylor ended up connecting with a DDT flatliner on the Bucks. He ended up taking out both Matt and Nick. So Chucky T ended up hitting the ropes, launched himself over the top rope, ended up taking out the Bucks again. So we had the Bucks end up stopping Rocky Romero, and they end up sending Rocky Romero into the guardrail. So the Young Bucks, at this point in the match, they end up tease diving out of the ring. They end up sliding out, and they kiss Adam Cole on the cheek, both Matt and Nick, because of course Adam Cole was out there, and Orange Cassidy was also out there along with Chuck Taylor and Rocky Romero. So the Young Bucks end up double teaming on Chuck Taylor. Matt Jackson ended up holding Chuck Taylor between the apron and the floor. And Nick ended up hitting the senton on Chuck Taylor. So Nick Jackson was shown spitting his gum at Rocky Romero. He was looking to launch himself out of the ring to Romero. And Orange Cassidy ended up standing in the way. So then we see Adam Cole. He ended up delivering a kick to Orange Cassidy's face, laying him out. Rocky Romero ended up tagging in, and he ended up connecting with a double hurricanrana onto Nick Jackson. So we had Brandon Cutler. Yes, Jobber Cutler. Brandon Cutler distracted the referee. Adam Cole ended up getting involved, and Matt Jackson ended up wanting Cutler to spray Rocky Romero, but Rocky Romero ended up avoiding it, and Brandon Cutler ended up spraying the cold spray at Matt Jackson. He ended up spraying the spray in Matt Jackson's eyes. So we have Rocky Romero end up almost getting the win. Nick Jackson ended up breaking it up. Romero ended up nearly catching Nick Jackson with a pinfall attempt. So Matt Jackson ended up hitting the Meltzer driver onto Rocky Romero, and he ended up getting the win. So there you go. The Bucks ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had Adam Cole and the Bucks end up attacking Chuck Taylor and Rocky Romero. Wheeler Yuta ended up coming out. He ended up trying to make the save, and the Bucks ended up delivering a double super kick to Yuta. Adam Cole ended up wiping out Orange Cassidy with the Panama Sunrise, and they were going to hit the BT trigger, Matt and Nick, and we see a minivan driving into the arena, and it was Sue, Trent's mom. So who steps out from the backseat of the van? Trent Beretta ends up returning. Trent Beretta returns after he had spinal surgery. So he looked good. He ended up cutting his hair. So Trent Beretta ended up nailing Brandon Cutler with a spear. He ended up taking out Matt Jackson and Adam Cole and Nick Jackson. And after he ended up taking out the Bucks and Adam Cole, we saw Chuck Taylor and Rocky Romero, Wheeler Yuta, Chris Statlander, and Sue and Orange Cassidy. They all end up hugging, and we see the camera pan back. Man, did I miss that! I miss the hug and the camera panning back. I like when they do that. But Trent Beretta's back, so it was awesome to see him back after he had the spinal surgery. So overall, this was a good matchup between the Bucks, Chuck Taylor, and Rocky Romero. So then we saw Alex Marvez. Alex Marvez was trying to ask Ruby Soho about Nyla Rose. And as soon as Ruby Soho was going to say something, she was interrupted by the Bunny and Penelope Ford. So the Bunny and Penelope Ford ended up telling Ruby Soho that Nyla Rose had promised them title shots. And they ended up telling Ruby Soho that they will team up with Nyla Rose against two of Ruby Soho's friends. So the Bunny and Penelope Ford say, oh, Ruby doesn't have any friends. So her name's Ruby Soho, but it should be Ruby Solo. So Ruby starts laughing at that. And then she starts fighting off the Bunny and Penelope Ford. Nyla Rose ends up coming out and lays out Ruby Soho. You hear Vicky Guerrero laughing there. Vicky Guerrero was also there. So we had the Bunny, Penelope Ford, Nyla Rose. Also Vicky Guerrero stomping away on Ruby Soho. And then we see Anna Jay and Tay Conti end up making the save. So it's going to be, them, Ruby Soho, Anna Jay, and Tay Conti versus Nyla Rose, Penelope Ford, and the Bunny. So that's going to be coming. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone ended up interviewing Sammy Guevara, the TNT champion. But before Tony Schiavone ended up interviewing Sammy Guevara, Cody Rhodes ended up coming out. Of course, Cody got boos from the crowd, and you saw the burn marks from the main event match last week, where Cody ended up facing Andrade in that Atlanta street fight, where Cody ended up going through the burn and flaming table. Brandy ended up putting the lighter fluid on the table, took the lighter, lit the table on fire. Cody got more of the impact on the flaming table than Andrade. So you saw the burns on his elbow tonight. Cody's burns on his arm, which looked brutal. So Cody ended up saying, from one good guy to the next, Tony Khan has made it official. He ended up saying that on Christmas, he will defend the TNT Championship. Sammy Guevara will defend the TNT Championship against Cody Rhodes. So we're getting this match, and what needs to happen is Cody needs to go heel. He needs to go heel in this match. If he's going to defeat Sammy Guevara for the TNT Championship and he wins it, he needs to go heel. So Cody ended up going down the tunnel. And then we had Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. They were shown in the crowd. Ethan Page ended up complaining about how he has to jump through hoops and that he should have had a shot at the TNT Championship. So he then reveals that Dan Lambert is coming back. Scorpio Sky ended up pointing out Sammy Guevara faces anybody except the people in the top 5. So pretty much that was basically that. So we're going to get Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes TNT Championship. If Cody wins the TNT Championship, like I said, he needs to go heel. He does if he wins the TNT Championship. And then we had Riho versus Jamie Hayter. Of course, Jamie Hayter ended up coming out along with Britt Baker and Rebel. And this was a enjoyable women's matchup here. Jamie Hayter ended up started off with Riho. She ended up dropping Riho down to the mat. She ended up delivering a backbreaker to Riho. The referee was distracted, which allowed Britt Baker to come in and drop Riho. Riho ended up dropping Jamie Hayter to the ropes. Riho ended up hitting the 619 to Jamie Hayter, and both women were on the outside. Jamie Hayter ended up sending Riho into the ring post, spine first. Then they went back to the ring. Jamie Hayter was continuing to dominate on Riho. She ended up delivering a kick to the back of Riho's head. And there was a point where Riho was on the top. And she jumped off the top. She ended up botching the move. Jamie Hayter ended up picking her up and just laying her out. So later on in the match, we had Riho end up managing to hit a code red, and she ended up going for the cover. Jamie Hayter ended up kicking out, and Riho then ended up going for the diving foot stomp from the top rope, and she went for the cover. Hayter ended up kicking out of that. So at the end of the match, we had Rebel cause a distraction, which allowed Jamie Hayter to get back to the turnbuckle, and Riho ended up nailing the crucifix box, and she delivered a running knee to Jamie Hayter. She went for the cover, and there you go. Riho ended up winning the match. Overall, this was an enjoyable women's match here. Thought Riho and Jamie Hayter both did pretty good here. So then we had Taz. Taz was on commentary throughout the night, and he had to make a special announcement. So Taz ended up announcing, this is the special announcement, Taz ended up announcing that his son, Hook, will make his in-ring debut this Friday on Rampage. And I'm like, thank God. We're going to finally see Hook in the ring. So it's going to be his debut match. And he's going to be taking on Fuego del Sol. Man, if you're competing against Fuego del Sol, you automatically win. Hook is winning this Friday on Rampage. Fuego del Sol has no choice. So then, they announced that on March 6th, it's going to be AEW Revolution. It's going to be taking place in Orlando, Florida. So that's going to be the next time that AEW is going to have a pay-per-view. So mark that on your calendar. March 6th. And then we had Tony Schiavone. And I thought this whole little segment here was just very random. So Tony Schiavone was set to interview the Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. Of course, Julia Hart was with them. And the lights ended up going out in the arena. And when they came back on, Malachi Black was on the stage. He was wearing that awesome looking mask. So Malachi Black took off the mask. He was staring down the Varsity Blondes. And then Malachi Black spits the black mist into Julia Hart's eyes. So then the lights go off in the arena again. As soon as the lights come back on, Malachi Black disappears. You just hear Julia Hart screaming from the mist in her eyes. And I gotta say, when Malachi Black spit the mist into Julia Hart's face and her eyes, you could tell that he botched it, because when you see Julia Hart, she had her hands on her face like this, and she was screaming. So she moved her hand like that. And so when she moved her hand like that, I did not see hardly any of the mist in her face. So I thought that was pretty much a botch from Malachi Black, because, like I said, you didn't hardly see any of the mist on Julia Hart. But I thought that this was just very random. This was a random segment. Main event: Bryan Danielson versus Long Island's own John Silver. Of course, John Silver of the Dark Order. This was a very good match here. Of course, Bryan Danielson still targeting the members of the Dark Order. So the match started off with John Silver. He was working on Bryan. And Bryan then came back. He ended up teasing going to the outside. It lured John Silver in, and Bryan ended up taking advantage of the match. So he ended up bringing John Silver down to the apron, started delivering some uppercuts. He then drove a knee into John Silver's head. Both guys went back in the ring. So Bryan ended up just being down on John Silver. He was delivering some more uppercuts. He dropped Silver down to the mat. He followed the uppercuts up with a shotgun drop kick to Silver. So he ended up getting boos from the fans. So John Silver ended up countering in midair while Bryan was going to go for the shotgun drop kick. So Silver ended up reversing that into a power bomb. So then Bryan and Silver end up going back and forth with their kicks. So Bryan ended up trying to kick his way out, and John Silver end up grabbing the rope. So, and this was because John Silver ended up taking down Bryan to the mat, ended up locking in a submission. So Bryan ended up looking to go to the outside. Silver ended up following it out with a dive to Bryan on the outside. So they went back into the ring. Silver ended up trying to hit a German suplex, and Bryan ended up landing on his feet. And he then nailed a kick at John Silver. Bryan was then looking to go for the running knee, and Silver ended up reversing it with a roll-up. So we had John Silver end up connecting with a knee to the back of Bryan's head, and then a German suplex. Silver went for the cover, which Bryan ended up kicking out. So John Silver was trying to go for a spin doctor. Bryan ended up raking the eyes of John Silver, and then he was just throwing some elbow strikes to Silver's jaw. Bryan ended up connecting with the pile driver, and then he locked in the submission, and Silver was passed out, so there you go. BRYAN Danielson ended up winning the match. Post-match, Bryan got on the mic, and he went over the members of the Dark Order that he defeated. Evil Uno, Colt Cabana, Angels. You know what I'm saying? They got their heads kicked in. And John Silver, he's like, oh wait, he's a man of his word. And that he promised to kick John Silver's head in. Like he's going to kick Hangman Adam Page's head in next week. So he ended up stomping away on John Silver's head. Hangman Adam Page ended up coming in. He rushed into the ring, and he was beating down on Bryan, and Bryan ended up quickly retreating out of the ring. Page then got on the mic, and he ended up saying to Bryan that next week he's going to stomp the cowboy shit out of him. So that was that. That was how Dynamite went off the air. But overall, this was a good match between Bryan and John Silver. Really enjoyed it. And next week's AEW is Winter is Coming. And I predict next week we're going to see 2 debuts. First one, Kyle O'Reilly. I think we're going to see Kyle O'Reilly next week make his AEW debut. And we might possibly see Wyndham Rotunda, a.k.a. Bray Wyatt. So we may see both of them next week on Dynamite. So if Wyndham Rotunda is in fact debuting next week on Dynamite, it's going to be awesome. The crowd is going to pop really loud, and they're going to be glad to see Wyndham. Because it's been a while since we've seen, Wyndham, on TV after he got released by WWE. So really do hoping we see Wyndham Rotunda next week. And like I said, I know we're going to see Kyle O'Reilly next week make his debut. So we're going to be possibly getting those 2 debuts next week. So I'm really looking forward to it. But Dynamite overall was a good show tonight. Really enjoyable show. And it was a much stronger show than last week's Dynamite. But anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And till next video, I'll see you all later.